Good morning and happy Easter. It is so good to be with you on this Easter Sunday morning. My name is Laurie Bilby, and I am one of a team of worship associates that have the honor and the joy of welcoming you today and of serving South Church, along with our interim minister, the Reverend Susan Suchocki Brown, and our director of Lifespan Ministry, Kirsten Hunter. Thank you for joining us this Sunday morning. Whether you're visiting South Church for the first time, are returning after an absence, or attend as often as possible, and whether you are here in person in the sanctuary on this glorious spring morning or watching from somewhere else. This is an intergenerational service today, so we look forward to having our young people stay with us after the time for all ages that will be offered by Kirsten Hunter and Jen Del Deo. The music today is graciously offered by Susan Adams, Johnny Pfeiffer, the South Church Pickup Choir, and our special brass quartet, and we're delighted to have them with us this morning. So, the Easter egg has a long and interesting history. And while the brightly colored plastic ones and the rich chocolate ones that we enjoy are pretty recent in origin, the real egg, decorated with colors or even with gilt, has been acknowledged as a symbol of continuing life and resurrection since pre-Christian spring celebrations. Given as gifts by the ancient Greeks, Persians, and Chinese at their spring festivals, the egg also appears in pagan mythology, where we read of the sunbird being hatched from the world egg. And in some pagan customs, the heaven and earth were thought to have been formed from two halves of an egg. The egg became an obvious symbol to early Christians of Jesus' resurrection, so the sharing of the egg was felt to be an appropriate and holy part of the Eastertide celebration. Even as early as the Middle Ages, eggs were colored to be given as gifts at Easter time. The Ukrainians have been decorating eggs with a beautiful wax-resist techniques since at least the year 988. And King Edward I of England's accounts for the year 1290 include the expense of purchasing at least 450 eggs to be given out as household gifts. So, it seems that this wonder of Easter has visited us here at South Church this morning, and that the Easter Bunny has left her signs. So take a few minutes now, get up if you need to, move about the sanctuary, and look for the little treats that the Easter Bunny has left us. And as you do that, greet your neighbors, wish them a good morning, and just be together in this space and time. What happens behind the mask stays behind the mask. And now we have a couple of announcements from Kirsten Hunter.
Good morning. Happy Easter, everyone. It looks so great seeing a full sanctuary of people this morning. What a joy. What a joy. There are many things afoot at South Church, including the Pocket Garden Tour, which is coming very quick towards us. And Pocket Garden Tour folks are selling blooms. So know that you can buy blooms to help support this incredible event. It is such a great community event and also a really wonderful fundraiser for our congregation. Additionally, there is a flower sale coming up on Mother's Day. The senior youth will be leading, as well as a bazaar. So there'll be all kinds of things for sale on May 8th, which is also the first day of candidating week for our candidate minister, who will be here from May 8th to the 15th. So hopefully as many of you as possible can join us on May 8th or be back on the 15th to meet the candidating minister. There's also going to be events all through the week, so keep your eye on our news for the schedule of what's happening during candidating week. It's not quite finalized yet, but it's coming soon. And lastly, this morning, in addition to that little preview Easter hunt that we just had, our children are invited, or people, children in spirit, are invited to come outside after service today for an Easter egg hunt on the lawn. And the way that's going to work is all of our young people will come out onto the portico and wait there at the top of the steps until you're given instructions for going to hunt for the eggs. So please feel free to join us for that. We have some extra baskets out in the narthex if you didn't bring one. And after you do the hunt, take those plastic eggs and stick them back together and bring them back inside and return them to us if you want, and we'll reuse them next year so that we're not buying more and more plastic every year. Thank you again for being here. Happy Easter.
As we light this chalice in our sanctuary, we invite those of you watching from other places to light yours as well. Fire is a powerful element that transforms everything it touches. May the lighting of this chalice stir the embers and fan the sparks of our own hearts, burning through our debilitating doubts and our depressing despairs, so that we may be about the work of Easter, being present, sharing burdens, and rolling the stones away. Please stand now as you're able and join me in reciting our mission statement, which is found in your order of service. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people, and we inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. You can sit down. Lo, the earth awakes again from the winter's bond and pain. Bring we leaf and flower and spray to adorn this happy day. Alleluia. That's Samuel Longfellow. In Charles Wesley's lyrics, about a century earlier, Christ the Lord is risen today. Earth and heaven in chorus say, raise your joys and triumphs high. Sing, ye heavens, and earth reply, Alleluia. The Easter mornings of my youth were busy. In the church in which I came of age, the junior and senior high youth led the sunrise service, which started at 6 a.m. So generally, we were showered and dressed and out of the house by about 5:30 because we had to do some setup. And then at around 6:45, we young people with some adult supervision also put on a big pancake breakfast for the church and the community. Regular early service started at 8:30, and the youth choir sang at that one. And then there was Sunday school, and then the 11 o'clock service that we had to stay for because my dad sang in the adult choir that sang at the 11 o'clock service. So it was a long morning, but a rich one, in which we were reminded in so many ways of resurrection, of hope, of celebration. And did I mention there were pancakes? I am grateful for those mornings, even if we might not have gotten into our Easter baskets until the early afternoon. I do appreciate having been raised with the opportunity to revel in the mystery, in power and glory way beyond my understanding, in miracles, in hope, in love beyond comprehension. It is no wonder to me that the story of the resurrection of Jesus continues to uplift and inspire through centuries and around the world. And I am grateful for these mornings, when the tunes might be familiar, but the words different, where there is room to lean into renewal, rebirth, restoration, where our free and responsible search for truth and meaning allows and compels us to grab a hold of resurrection in the ways that move our hearts the most, to appreciate the breadth of ways in which this springtime infusion of new hope and life lift us up. So in whatever ways resurrection comes to us, to each of us, let's drink it in, breathe it deeply, eat it up like the ears on a chocolate bunny, celebrate the gift. Alleluia.
Okay, so we have a time for all ages story to tell today, and if anyone would like to come up closer for this story, you are welcome to. You can sit right up here or on the front pew. You can stay right where you are if that's what you prefer. The story we're going to tell this morning is kind of a tricky story to tell. Jenna and I have both been a little bit nervous about it because it's not entirely a happy story, but it feels like an important story to tell so that you understand a little bit about this day and some of the symbols we see. And we already got to hear Laurie talk about some of the funny things about Easter. Easter is a lot of different things. There's a lot of different symbols. Will you guys right here move forward a little bit, make room? Just scooch forward, yeah. So Easter has bunnies that lay eggs, and lots of different colored eggs, and there's candy everywhere, and a lot of people come to church on Easter, more than usual, I usually notice. Which is awesome. And we sometimes get more dressed up at Easter time, some of us do, and there's also some symbols that you might not understand, including one that is a symbol of a person on a cross. Has anyone ever seen that symbol? And it can sometimes be kind of a violent picture that you see. There's even sometimes blood. It's a person's body up on a cross. It does not look like a good thing, right? And so in Christian churches, children learn about this, but sometimes in Unitarian Universalist churches, children don't really know what that symbol means, and we're going to tell the story about that symbol today. So it starts like this. Once upon a time, about 2,000 years ago, someone named Jesus lived in the world. And Jesus grew up in a place called ancient Rome. And in the place where Jesus grew up, things weren't really that great. There was a lot of suffering happening at that time. There were a lot of people who were very poor, and a lot of people who were sick and not being taken care of well. And there was a fair amount of hatred and bigotry as well. People who treated other people poorly, who thought some people weren't worth being loved and cared for. And Jesus grew up in that place, and he saw that, and he thought to himself, we can do better. Human beings can do better. We can love each other better than this. And he really believed that in his heart. He had hope that the world could be a better place. And so he lived his life with that hope. And it drove how he did everything. It affected what he said to people and how he spoke. And even more importantly, it affected how he lived. And people were very moved by him. They listened to his words. They found what he said to be true. And they watched him. And they saw him model a way of living in the world that was very compelling. And so people started to follow him. And the more attention that he got from people who agreed with what he was saying, the more nervous the people in power started to feel. So the leaders, both the religious and political leaders of the time, who held the power, who made the decisions about how things were done, were watching this man, Jesus, and they didn't like what he was saying. They felt his words were a threat to their control. And that happens a lot, where people, when they hold power, if they see something that feels like a threat, they worry about losing their power. They don't ask themselves, what could I do differently? They ask themselves, how can I get rid of that threat? And that's what they were doing when Jesus started to grow in his message. And so instead of changing how they behaved, they started thinking about how to get rid of him. And eventually, they made the decision to crucify him. And that word means, it's a fancy word of saying they had him killed. And that cross, when we see that image, is his body on a cross. Because not only did they want him gone, but they wanted to send a message to all the other people not to do what he did. They wanted to scare people. And so they put his body on a cross in the middle of town so other people could see. And that was meant to scare people away from living their life with a focus on love and liberation and justice. And after he died, that was a really sad thing. The people who loved him, the people who found hope in his message, were heartbroken. And they took his body and they brought it to a tomb, and they put it inside this tomb, and they closed it up for a couple days. And they grieved. They felt very sad.
And then, after a couple of days, some people went to the tomb to care for Jesus' body with oils and spices and these different rituals that were important to their culture. And so these people went to the tomb, and again, this story is 2,000 years old, so you can imagine that there are different ways to tell this story. And some people say that when the people got to the tomb, Jesus' body was gone, and that it had been miraculously lifted up to God. And some people say that maybe his body was still there, but if there was no life in the body anymore, if his spirit was gone, then Jesus was gone. But either way, you can imagine that these people who loved Jesus and went to the tomb on that morning were probably feeling a lot of really difficult things. And there's a UU named Mandy McGlynn who wrote a story that's about the conversation that might have happened among these women that went to the tomb on what is now, that morning at the tomb is what we now call Easter morning. That's what we're here about today. And so this story that Mandy tells, she says that the women were desperately sad. And so they started sharing their memories of their time with Jesus, because that's what we do when we lose people that we love. We share our stories about them. And so they were remembering all these times where Jesus had taken a desperate situation and turned it into abundance. And they remembered all the ways that he cared for these people that had been treated terribly, and how he gave them love and hope and community and belonging. And that is indeed a miraculous gift. And so they couldn't believe how someone so good and loving could have been killed and not with them anymore. But then they remembered the Passover meal that Jesus had shared with his closest followers the night before that he had been killed. And these people that were with him had made a promise to help him carry out his work of justice. And so they're here, and they're having bread and wine, and Jesus picked up the bread, and he said, "I am working toward infinite justice, and I will do that for as long as I live. But we all know that I won't live long, because you can't challenge the status quo, you can't work at breaking the systems of oppression without taking big risks and getting hurt. And so now the people in power are coming for me." And then he broke the bread into pieces, and he said, just like how this bread is broken so that hungry people can be fed and nourished, also my body will be broken because I am trying to take away the power that is hurting people. And he passed out the pieces of bread to the people at the meal, and he said, "Eat this. And every time that you share bread, remember that I gave my body to this work, but your bodies are nourished to continue it." And then he picked up the cup of wine, and he said, "My blood is about to be poured out because I refuse to stop fighting for justice. And they can break my body, but they can't break my spirit because you've promised to carry out this work even when I'm not here anymore." And so he passed the cup around, and he said, "Drink this and take in my spirit and take in the spirit of love, and let it remind you of this work." And so they shared the bread and the wine. And then, give me just 1 second. And then what happened?
So Jesus' message lived in their hearts. Those folks, those women, as they sat in the tomb, remembered
Yes.
that message.
Yes, thank you. So they had a meal, and they did all these things. And then the next day, Jesus was crucified. He was nailed to that cross. And that could have been just another example of a rebel being killed and an example of fear winning. But those women and the people at the meal and countless other people remembered the words and they took them to heart. And then every time they ate and drank, they did remember. They were nourished and they remembered their promise and they carried on that work. And resurrection is something being born again. And so the meal and the remembering and the work, all of those things and the people, those things turned that killing of that man's body into the resurrection of a spirit of justice. And it turned the death that is despair into a resurrection of hope. And in that way, Jesus is resurrected through his mission.
Again and again. And he wasn't the only one, and he wasn't the first one to share that vision and to understand that truth. And there are many people in the world who don't find the stories of Jesus are the place where they find that inspiration. They find that inspiration in many other places as well. But there is something shared amongst all of those people, something that was alive in Jesus' life, which was a real clearness that love and kindness, treating everyone, even your enemies, with love and kindness was a better way to live. And so on Easter Sunday, we celebrate always remembering that, and remembering it again after sad things happen, and remembering it again after violence happens, and celebrating that all of us together can change the world, just like Jesus changed the world. And that is a big part of what Easter is about. So maybe now you understand that image a little bit more, and hopefully you feel in your heart what I feel in my heart, which is a whole lot of love, looking out at all of us and what we can accomplish together. Okay.
So maybe next year we'll explain the bunnies laying eggs, but we're going to have to learn that first. But for now, you can just go back to your seats. We won't go downstairs, and we'll see you at the egg hunt.
It's now time for our morning offering, time for us to help support all of the good work and the good people of this congregation. During the month of April, our collection will also be shared with Court-Appointed Special Advocates of New Hampshire, or CASA, which provides a voice for abused and neglected children and youth by empowering a statewide network of trained volunteers to advocate on their behalf so they can thrive in safe and secure homes. In addition to giving here in person or on our website or mailing checks to our office at 73 Court Street, you can use the Vanco app on your mobile phone. Please give as you are able. The morning offering will now be gratefully received.
Let us take some time this morning, if you wish to come forward and light a candle of joy or concern, knowing that here you are held in love and care. And if you are at home and have a joy or concern you wish us to know about, please write it in the chat line. Taking a time of silence to think about what your concerns are, and also taking time to write on the card in your pew if you have a need that you want us to attend to, helps to make this the precious community that it is. So I would invite anyone who wishes to come forward and light a candle. I would invite you to go around the outside aisles and back up the center. And please know that we are here for you, and the light and love that is shared is held in our hearts and makes this the precious community. Know that you are cared for. May you feel the love and hope of this season, and may you know that you are not alone, but here among beloveds. So all across the world, people of a wondering, questioning, spiritually curious, and religiously rich mind and heart gather Easter morning to think about the possibility and the potential that can emerge from this day. There are many stories and many beliefs surrounding this day, and Unitarian Universalist can't escape talking about this day, nor can we avoid talking about Jesus and what this day means for our Christians, brothers and sisters and neighbors. I left the hard work to the RE. Because I could have shared the Bible story about the third day after the death of Jesus, and I'll recount bits and pieces of it. But instead, I want to share an old Russian folk tale as a way to think about new possibilities come to birth. This folk story is one that comes to us from Russia. It mirrors stories told in Ukraine, in fact, all of Eastern Europe and beyond, as Laurie has pointed out. And our youth and RE have been engaged in an activity they will recognize as soon as I begin to tell the tale. In a long, long time ago in Russia, or so the story tells us, a woman named Babushka made her living by carefully painting intricate designs on eggshells. And she had been taught this art by her mother and her mother before and the mothers before her, and all the generation of women. And all through the year, she would paint her eggs with lovely, intricate, colorful, beautiful designs, getting them ready for the annual spring Easter festival. She lived alone in a cottage at the end of the village. Well, almost all alone, except for a goose named Rechenka. And one day, Rechenka's flappy wings knocked over the basket of eggs, breaking them all. A risk that seems more than likely to happen when one keeps a goose with flappy wings indoors. Not like the bull in the china shop, quite, but flappy wings indoors. Babushka was crushed and sad, and when her beautiful eggs lay smashed on the floor, all seemed quite lost. Her creativity, her months of hard work, and her chance to win at the festival. Winning at the festival was always a great honor and brought both praise and prize. And she knew that her eggs could never, ever be put back the way they were, much like an earlier fairy tale about Humpty Dumpty. She could do nothing but go to bed and be sad, feeling lost in that vast wilderness of hopelessness that a lot of us have experienced. But the next morning, she was greeted with the most amazing and unbelievable thing when she saw that Rechenka had laid a beautiful egg for her, an egg which was not a plain goose egg, but one already covered with the intricate, beautiful, colorful designs which provided her livelihood and most amazingly resembled the eggs that had been broken. And Babushka found a sense of grace within her wilderness and a sense of loss, and she experienced the willingness to accept the possibility of hope that had come to her in a most unexpected way. She didn't need to enter her eggs in the contest, and she attended the Easter ceremony feeling joy and awe and full of wonder and hope. So what do I think that this story might have anything to do with Easter? Well, let me tell you. That story reminds us that we have to take chances. We can say that we should never ever let a flappy-winged goose live in our house, and that certainly she should have protected her precious eggs. But however, we can learn things from the previous generations and from our mistakes. We need to continue to do them, what we have learned from past generations, even if not perfectly, and sometimes with a lot of risk. And we can learn that sometimes the gifts we have been given break. Jesus and his followers were on a path that was sure to lead to his destruction. And we can today look back and say, if his life had ended in any other way, his influence would not remain with us as it has for the last 2,000 plus years. Let's not forget, there were few who could move and affect people as Jesus could. He did not let his disciples be passive participants in life. Like the women who traveled with him, who were life givers through pregnancy and birthing, Jesus too was a life giver. And the gospel stories do not tell of an easy life for those who chose to follow him, but instead speak of being surrounded with the sick, the possessed, the mentally ill, the military zealots, the Roman guards, the hungry, the poor, the lame, the unclean, the status-free, the outcast. It was not an easy life for any of his followers. Yet his gifts were many, and his gifts to have been left and placed out on the edge of the wilderness, on the edge of town, would be sad, for we would not know of his message of compassion and for all the people that he worked to free, and his belief in a loving and tender divine source that he called God, that was and is and can be manifest in how we treat our neighbor and our world. This story this morning also lets us know that sometimes we have to know brokenness before we can know fullness, beauty, and healing. On the Friday that Jesus was crucified, his closest followers fled and ran to safety. They withdrew. They were frightened. The world as they knew it had ended. Little attention is paid to that day between Friday and Easter morning, but many and most of us can relate to that day that is sometimes called Holy Saturday, that day in between when nothing makes sense, the day of intense loss, grief, aloneness, devastation, destitution, the day when we wonder how we are even going to take one more breath. And then, by grace or goodness or a desire for life, something takes over, and some, albeit minute, shift and possibility appears. And the Spirit, our Spirit, lives, and a spark of grace appears. Life as we know it is not the same. It is a time of change, but our life will continue. And most often this shift occurs when we realize we don't do things alone. We realize we are not alone, and often those we least expect to help us are sometimes our best helpers, our best allies. Also, we might not get what we want. Babushka did not get to enter her eggs into the contest, but she still attended the celebration with a full heart and a hope-filled spirit. On Easter morning, it was the women who dared leave the safety of home to come and find Jesus' body to prepare it for the burial. And in the book of Luke, we hear this story. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they went to the tomb, taking spices which they had prepared. And they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they went in, they did not find the body. And the women ran back to the other disciples and told them what they had encountered and the message that had been given them. And the message, "Go to Galilee, and continue to preach. Preach the message I gave to you. I am not dead, he said. I want you to go out into the world and preach the gospel to everyone. And what is that gospel? It is the good news. It is the good news from Jesus, that life is full of possibility and of hope. And it is that good works of feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, bringing justice and mercy and compassion to all who suffer is not over, is not ended just because I am not here. Jesus left this earth, that is true, but his ministry of loving all humanity as you would love yourself, his ministry that healing can occur, his ministry and message that even out of the unknown and the darkness of that day, that gloomy Saturday, and out of the unknown and the darkness of the tomb, hope survives and thrives, and all will remain. Jesus taught and trusted that he was not there, but his message could and would be carried forth by others. And this is our task, to carry an intricate and a beautiful message, to be message bearers, to be messengers of hope, and to understand that in unexpected ways, underneath the fragile shell of life, new possibilities are always waiting to be birthed. May it be so. And we will have closing music, right?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to rise and join in humming All Creatures of the Earth and Sky with us, you are welcome.
Lift your voices high.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
From the words of Reverend Dick Fuchs, teach us to dance, O life, till we find ourselves at the still point of the turning world and know ourselves to be one with thee and each other, brother and sisters, siblings and kin of the one life that has died and risen again and again in the springtime renewal of human consciousness. We invite you to join us in this postlude, and afterwards we encourage the children and youth and young at heart to go out and meet Jen out in the narthex for the Easter egg hunt. Thank you for the gift of music this morning.